So we're going to go ahead and refute this Christian again on the fly drink of the Prophet Muhammad, and we'll go directly to his video. But I want to make this point clear because we didn't clarify it in the first part of the video, that the Prophet Muhammad, according to these Christian Prince followers, the Prophet Muhammad did not say you're supposed to swallow the fly. Okay, I want to make that really, really, really clear. Okay, so he didn't say you're supposed to swallow it. You're supposed to dip the fly in if you're in the desert and so forth, and then you're supposed to grab the fly, chuck it out, and then you can obviously consume the water without the fly. Just in case the Christians make a mockery to say he was ordered to swallow the fly, but you're not ordered to swallow the fly. That is an interjection and a lie into the hadith. So I didn't make that clarification in the first video, but I'm making it now in the second video. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the comment section and go to his points, just to go a little deeper into this subject and, refute his allegations as we see them. So basically, we'll bring up his because he's made a few more points in the comment section, and what we'll do is we'll bring him up, and then I'll narrate exactly what he's saying, and then I'll give my response to that. So basically, his name is Sa'al Nom. He goes on to say, the problem is that you won't have the same end results, and never does the article say anything about the wings. Just dipping a fly into the drink and drinking it won't give you any health benefits. On the contrary. So basically, we've already refuted this in part one. Just because a scientific article doesn't specify the wings, it doesn't disprove the hadith. You notice the Christians don't give any credibility, or they don't do any justice to the hadith. They don't come out and honestly say, look, at least the hadith got the part right about the fly having an antidote, right? Instead of that, we see this negative energy, this negative comeback, this, criticism. They completely ignore that the miracle of the hadith actually mentions that, yet medical science did not have that information back 1400 years ago. They don't give that credit to the Prophet Muhammad, but they want to quickly pick on these little issues and say, the scientific paper is not specific on where exactly these pathogens and antidote exists, and because the hadith doesn't specify that, they conclude the hadith is wrong. But it's actually ludicrous. They don't give any positive benefit to the hadith to say at least it got it right. It doesn't matter about the details. And of course, if those details come out in later future reports, what will you say then? So for you to dismiss it straight away is dishonest and hypocritical. And he goes on to say, just dipping the fly into your drink, it won't give you any health benefits. How do you know that? Did the scientific paper tell you that? Did it discredit that? No. How can you dismiss that? How can you come up and make up an assumption and say it won't give you any health benefits when we know that the fly does have antidote benefits, right? It has antidote properties on there. So if there is a disease, it's going to battle it. And unless you can show from the paper that it doesn't, then you're discredited. You're clearly discredited here. The way it gets extracted is not just dipping the fly into your drink. It requires chemicals and filtering, something the Prophet of Islam did not have access to in his time. Therefore, we can safely conclude that he just dipping a dirty fly into his drink, which would not result in anything positive. Notice he's making another assumption here. The actual report says that the extraction mechanism, they did this by using ethanol. That's how they extracted the antibacterial properties. But notice the Christian is making a flawed argument here. He's assuming that the scientific paper says it is the only way it is extracted. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say anywhere in the scientific paper that it is the only way. Maybe the reason why they're using ethanol is because it probably helps the extraction process a lot quicker, through chemicals. But the report doesn't say that water doesn't extract it, unless you can specify it, and you can't even do that. So what are you talking about when you're making an assumption, yet the scientific paper doesn't say that? So you're misrepresenting the paper. Okay, and let's see what else he says. We'll go down to here. He says, yes, nowhere does it mention the wings, let alone one wing carrying the disease. Oh, we've gone through this already. Just because the paper doesn't specify it, it doesn't really matter. The fact that it mentions it, it's got it on the surface, it doesn't contradict the hadith unless you can show that the scientific paper tells us that it's not located on a specific wing. So again, the point is void. He goes on to say he is not talking about general cure like antibiotic. How do you know that? How do you know that? Maybe he is talking about a general cure, and you're wrong about it. He goes, if the fly is carrying a disease that should cause salmonella, do you think the other wing would contain the cure? I don't think so. So notice he's making a falsified assumption here again. So basically, the Christian is not understanding the context of the hadith. Now, if the wing, just as an example, let's say, for example, one of the wings contains salmonella. He's basically saying, can you show us the same scientific article where it says it also cures salmonella? But the hadith itself doesn't say it cures all diseases, sir, right? It just says it has a cure for a disease. That could be specific. I mean, will you assume that the Prophet's saying, oh, the wing of the disease, the wing of the fly is also carrying an antidote against AIDS or cancer? Come on, let's be intellectually honest here, right? Obviously, it's in general terms. It's not for all diseases, and the hadith doesn't say that. But notice, he goes on to say, if it does carry salmonella, will you think that it's going to have an antidote? See, again, he's missing the context here. This hadith was revealed specifically for the desert Bedouin living in the desert where water is very scarce. It's not always available. If a fly, in our modern age, if a fly fell in my drink, obviously I'm going to throw it out, throw the whole water out, throw the whole fly out. I'm probably even going to go get myself a new cup, right? And fill it up and use that cup, right? Because we live in the modern world, right? We're not in the desert. We don't have those problems of running out of water and not being able to fetch for another one. We don't have those issues here. So the hadith is specific for the desert. And of course, it is specific for our modern age. I mean, we still have places where there are deserts. And of course, you could be left in that vulnerable situation. So this hadith is for a vulnerable situation, right? And if I was to choose between consuming salmonella and not drinking the water, and I'm going to go without water and die from thirst, obviously I'm going to risk consuming salmonella because what is important for me is to live, right? Maybe I could get other diseases to cure salmonella once I'm alive, right? I'm at least given the chance to live because I've consumed water. But you know what I mean? I'm not going to pick between the two and say, oh, because I might harmfully consume salmonella, I'm going to ignore drinking water. Obviously, I'm going to drink water as well because maybe many of the other diseases found on the fly can be cured through the antidote. it doesn't mean it necessarily will cure salmonella. And the hadith doesn't say it cures all diseases, right? But, it will give me a chance to live, fight the other diseases within my body. And, obviously the doctors or whoever could treat salmonella, right? So the hadith doesn't specifically say that it treats all diseases. So that's the assumption that the Christian is making, ignoring the historical context of the actual hadith itself. What else is he saying? So the topic of the weather fly contains okay, he keeps going on. We've refuted the chemicals and the filter. And yeah, that's it. Basically, that's it. He says, now you mention a website that states that flies also carry E. coli. Now this is also nothing to do with this. Okay, yep. Basically, that's it. He's been refuted. We've gone through his comments. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Good day.